Hello. In this video, we're going to be archiving some videos that came out of Screencastomatic, specifically the source files that you get after you've recorded before you've exported the files. I typically keep all of my source files for my recordings, and they wind up taking up several gigabytes of data. I think I've got almost 100. So I've been archiving them out to Blu-ray discs for cold storage because I don't really need these files long term. And so what I'm thinking of doing is just compressing these and well, I was thinking of adding them to the disk, and I realized for one that I was having trouble getting onto the disk. If I added it to a archive and attempted to compress it, it actually got like 90% of the size shaved off just using normal compression. So in this video, I'm going to try out using probably maximum compression settings, with the very highest being ultra, and we'll see what it looks like when we attempt to actually export those out. So I'm going to save this out to a USB drive that I've got here, and we will go ahead and start compressing. And so over here you can see the processed amount of data and the compressed size and the compressed ratio. And from the beginning, the amount of data that's being processed compared to the size is pretty disproportionate. Like there's a lot of data getting packed into a very small size. And over the course of the transfer, the compression ratio just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which was quite interesting, which we can see on the screen here actually. So after a certain point, the compression ratio just gets better and better and better. And so this kind of explains why when you export the video out of Screencast-O-Matic and you get the compressed encoded output, it's generally very, very small. It's because the lossless screen recording compresses very well when it actually gets run through an encoder. And so the source files are actually pretty lossless, just screen recordings or screen captures. And if you leave them on your disk, they end up taking up a lot of space, whereas when you're done with them, and if you're not quite ready to delete them yet, it's better to actually compress them when they're being stored if you're not actually going to have to open them very often, because very likely you could be getting, you know, 80–90% of the size saved wherever they're being stored. So here towards the end of the compression process, we can see that this almost 5 gigabyte set of files is being compressed down to about 250 megabytes or less at a 4% compression ratio, which is just extremely good. So I'd really recommend for anyone else that keeps their old Screencast-O-Matic source files to go and compress them out, because the difference in file size for something that you might not be going back and opening that often is far outweighs the slight inconvenience of then having to uncompress it if you want to open it and work with it later. And it's kind of a staggering difference in size, because I didn't really realize that they would compress out this well, because I've never really played with it or thought about it. But now that I realize that, it's going to change kind of how I'm actually storing those files, and it will really greatly reduce the amount of disk size that I'm going to need to handle them.